Welcome back to SPEC Frequency. My name is Mohammed.
Hi, I'm Tato Alexander. Welcome.
And welcome back. Thank you guys so much for all the support you guys have been giving us recently. We appreciate it so much.
What are we talking about today? We're talking about...
Okay, so today we're actually going to be talking about a special topic. It's about animatronics.
Animatronics?
Now, not so much as just animatronics, but the creepy side of animatronics.
Animatronics aren't creepy. Animatronics are lovely. The only memory I really have about animatronics is Chuck E. Cheese.
Well, when was the last time you went to Chuck E. Cheese?
You know, Adnan always says, oh, all your stories are from 30 years ago. But hey, you know what? I'm old. So yes, they're from over 30 years ago. I think the last time I went to Chuck E. Cheese was back in 1986, 87 for a birthday party.
Okay.
What we're talking about today is completely foreign to me. I can honestly say I had no idea what is it, Five Nights at Freddy is actually until I started doing some research though. And you have this whole entire horror thing built around these animatronic things. There's a guy who is attempting to kill children in that, and I guess it's based off a video game, really.
Yes, a very popular one.
Very popular one. But yeah. For me, Chuck E. Cheese, I mean, back in the 80s, you go there, it had this huge stage, and you had these animatronics, like Chuck and everything on stage playing music. And you had these kind of, well, almost like cafeteria wood tables kind of in a row, like a cafeteria. You sit in front of a stage, and then under the stage, there was actually tunnels under there where you can run around and play. And then the animatronics would perform this big performance there. And then, you know, Chuck would come out, you know, and you just give him a big hug. We love the animatronics.
So what we're going to be talking about really is that idea really in a nutshell. You know, why were people so obsessed? Why did people like animatronics back then? But then we look at them today and we get terrified, especially when we look back to the ones back to like the 70s, 80s with Chuck E. Cheese and the Rockfire Explosion. You know, we look at that footage now and we get genuinely terrified of them. But people back then, I mean, it was just normal to them. They love this stuff.
Well, now I know a little bit about animatronics. I guess if you go back to the Greeks and you go back to mechanical devices, even Japan had its own form of doll that, you know, was mechanical, right? And I guess if I think about it, right, like animatronics or just even robots in general, like people were obsessed with these things mimicking or imitating humans, right? And I know you're going to go in this direction, though, but something about Disney, right? How Disney kind of brought it to mainstream, so to speak, right? But Disney doesn't get all the credit for everything in the world.
He gets credit, Mr. Walt Disney gets credit for animatronics, though, because the recent definition of audio animatronics that we have today and the way they're built all go back to Walt Disney.
Really?
Yeah, because he's not the one who necessarily like created animatronics maybe for the first time, but he is the one who really advanced things, and he was one of the pioneers. You know, some of his like more famous inventions were, you know, like Enchanted Tiki Room, where like you walk in and you see like animatronic birds and animals singing to you. You know, Pirates of the Caribbean. That is one of the like most popular attractions, and the one in Disneyland is actually still, you know, the original one that he actually worked on, and Carousel of Progress too.
What's that? Care Bears of the Progress?
Carousel of Progress.
Carousel.
So like the summary. I mean, you just sit in a room and then, you know, you're like moving around the stage basically, but each like part of the stage represents like a different era in American history.
Okay, so how did this actually become frightening to people, really? Because all of my memories of animatronics are really great. Chuck E. Cheese, get pretty subpar pizza, but it was about the experience, and then you can go up and hug this big ass rat. But and then all the Disney stuff, Pirates of the Caribbean, whatever you want to call it. I mean, yeah, it was exciting, but I wasn't afraid though. So what's all this Five Nights at Freddy and people afraid of animatronics? I mean, was it all because of this video game that made it scary, or why is this? Break it down for me, because I'm still not afraid. I still believe, I still love, I still hug Chucky.
So to get into that, that's actually a good segue into the Uncanny Valley.
Okay.
Now it's basically this idea. It started from this Japanese roboticist, Masahiro Mori. Is that how you pronounce it?
What would you assume? Since I'm half Japanese, I'll be able to pronounce it properly.
Masahiro Mori. Okay.
Okay. So in Japan, actually, the last name comes first. So it'd be Mori Masahiro.
Okay, Mori Masahiro.
Okay.
So in the 1970s, he came up with this idea called the Uncanny Valley. Now, in a nutshell, it's basically the idea that the more something looks human, the more we as humans are drawn to it. But if we reach a certain level where something looks very, very artificially human, then we actually start being terrified of it.
Well, like a mannequin?
A mannequin or animatronic, maybe.
Okay.
Now, for example, Chuck E. Cheese or Five Nights at Freddy's, right?
Yeah.
You see these animatronic robots, right? That look like animals.
Yeah.
So your brain goes and thinking, okay, this is an animal. I'm expecting, like an animal. But if you go there, maybe if you see like Chuck the rat, just standing still, or like having like very like robotic movements because it's running off like a hydraulic system.
Yeah.
Your brain is like, well, this is not what I'm expecting, right? You're not expecting like jerky movements when you see like a really ultra realistic like animatronic, right? So if something looks very human or very real, but it has things that don't like fit the definition of what it is to be real or human or animal, then your brain becomes terrified of it.
Wait, and that's based on like movement of the animatronic? So if it's like really jerky or...
Not just movement, it could also be like small like defects, right? So I mean, if you ever look to see like, a realistic humanoid robot, right? Of like people who have tried to like recreate human faces.
Yeah.
You might see like defects where like, the eyes might not be moving correctly, the eyebrows might not be the cheeks might not be moving correctly. Things like that, so that your brain starts pointing out these little details and you actually get scared of it.
Okay, so if something looks a little bit off or weird, but it's supposed to be a human, then our brain automatically sees like the defects or sees something strange, and then we get freaked out.
Yeah, because it's also because like your brain's messing with you too, right? Because your brain keeps going back and forth, expecting, like questioning something. If is it alive or is it not alive, right?
Okay.
You go into a room, if you see, Chuck E. Cheese, right?
Yeah.
You have like the main mascot, Chuck, right? Now, if you see him just like standing still because he's not on, your brain automatically goes, okay, this thing is not real, right?
Yeah.
But the second it turns on and starts moving around, then your brain starts questioning, is this real? Is it alive? But then it sees like the jerky movement and say, oh, this is fake. But then it also sees like the mouth moving and it hears like audio coming out of it. So then it goes, okay, maybe it's alive. So your brain keeps going back and forth with that idea, which contributes to why we might be so afraid of them now.
No, I get that actually. Again, like if I saw Chuck standing in a room in the dark by itself, it'd be pretty freaky in general. But then again, if I saw anyone just standing randomly in the dark, it would be freaky in general. But if it was an animatronic that, suddenly started moving, I mean, I can understand how my brain would kind of, be going back and forth on it, though, especially if it's making human movements. Now, if it's going haywire and going all crazy like that, then I would just like leave the freaking room. But yeah, I understand what you're trying to say. So we're kind of actually lucky, though. This is kind of an interesting topic because the more and more I learn about this, so we do have some events coming up and we have Halloween coming up, right? So again, I'm a foreigner. I haven't been back in the States that long, so I'm kind of, though Halloween has become very popular overseas where I live, though, but I'm kind of getting into it with more and more research, though. So we have a couple of trips planned for the next few months, don't we? And this kind of all links together. What is this, Halloween Horror Nights?
Well, Halloween Horror Nights, I mean, this is like the big one that everybody thinks of when they think of Halloween events, right? Because they do haunted houses based off of, IPs, right? Like Stranger Things, Terrifier, Five Nights at Freddy's.
So they'll have something for Five Nights at Freddy's there.
Not this year. But they had it last year, and I did go last year, and they did recreate all of the animatronics from Five Nights at Freddy's. Yeah.
Well, why did it freak you out?
Because you go in, right? The facade was the for like Freddy Fazbear's Pizza.
Okay.
So you walk in there, And then as soon as you turn a corner, they have like the stage of like all the 3 animatronics, and those things were like massive, and they put them on like a raised platform too, like how a stage usually is. So just imagine like you're standing here, and then the animatronics are up here, and then they're like really big animatronics.
Oh wow, okay. So for people that don't know though, so Muhammad actually, is obsessed with theme parks, and he actually worked for, what'd you work for a while?
Sesame Place.
He worked for Sesame Place, so he travels all these theme parks. He's actually worked in the inner guts of these things, so he's probably one of the few people that's been able to walk around in a theme park at night when there's nothing around, right?
Oh yeah, that is pretty scary too. Like you expect something to come and attack you, but we can always talk about that in another video if you guys want to know more about that. But yeah, I mean, like animatronics are used in a lot of haunted houses and Halloween things in general, right? Halloween Horror Nights is one of the more like mainstream examples, but even if you go to your local haunt, right, they'll probably have 1 or 2 animatronics just because they work really well for the environment. Because one of the things you have to do in a haunted house, right, you have this like period, right? So you start, right, then you have to build up the tension, then you have to scare the guest, and then you have to have like a recovery period, and then you do it all over again, right? So animatronics work really well for this because they have like predefined movements. You can trigger them to operate at certain times. You can trigger them to operate on the loop. You can manually control them, or you can code control them. So they have like they work really well for this type of environment.
Wait, so this is not like a subculture or anything, but there's So what you're trying to tell me is that most people would get freaked out at a haunted house?
Yeah.
And people like going to get freaked out at haunted houses?
Yeah, I do. I love it.
Really?
I love the thrill. Like, I'm not into thrill rides at all, but if you ask me to go to a haunted house, haunted forest, whatever it may be, I'll go.
Well, so I guess like what I imagine automatically when I think about a haunted house, like things like jump scares, right? Yes. But we're talking about animatronics here, right? And of course, animatronics can, I guess, obviously jump out, but there's actually a deeper psychological connection that makes us more afraid when we see animatronics, and it's not just like, I'm a robot bear that comes out, I'm coming out, I'm gonna.
Because again, an animatronic, right? If you have like a human scare actor, right?
Okay.
They work really well too.
Yeah.
The thing about animatronics being used in haunted houses, in my opinion, is they can stand completely still, and they can be completely skilled. So when you're like walking by an animatronic, at first glance, it'll look like just like a regular, maybe just like mannequin or sculpture or whatever, but then like the second it turns on and like comes attacks you, then you're like, whoa, oh my god, what's happening? So that's why they work. That's another reason why they work so well for this kind of thing.
Okay, so Halloween Horror Nights, we're gonna go check it out, and we'll do a complete video on this. We're gonna test the theory. There's gonna be animatronics there, right?
Yeah, well, I'm sure they're gonna use them in the Stranger Things house.
Okay, so like we're gonna test that theory, right? Because I ain't afraid of no.
You're not afraid?
Well, no, I mean, I just, again, like going back to like my impression, which is, it's kind of interesting because I'm kind of a blank slate when it comes to being back in the States, though. A lot of the things I remember are from like the 80s and 90s because I was gone for so long, and my image, or as we say in Japan, is that animatronics are really cool and they're really fun. Like I have really good memories of it. So the whole entire connection with like horror to animatronics, I mean, maybe because I love like space horror things, like for example, the movie Aliens, right? With the huge queen at the end. I mean, that was a huge animatronic controlled puppet. And I mean, that was real. That wasn't CGI. And that was freaky as hell though. But
that actually is a very good segue into Spirit Halloween.
Really? Why so?
If you want an alien animatronic, you should go and get one.
What, they have them there?
They're selling one. Like
wait. What is like Spirit Halloween exactly? Right? Apparently, I don't have Spirit because I have no idea what this is. So what is this? It's just like a Halloween's store show? What is it?
So to keep it short, all it is just a Halloween themed pop up.
Okay.
They started a few years ago, but they've like grown rapidly. So they're kind of like what people are expecting every Halloween season now. But they just like show up. They like lease out spaces temporarily and like abandon like shopping malls and stuff like that. and they just sell everything Halloween. So costumes, decor. But the thing that really stands out with them is that they sell a whole bunch of really good animatronics, and they've brought these animatronics to the consumer market.
Wait, so I can get an Aliens animatronic there?
I think they have one this year. I don't know if it's the Queen.
Yeah, so we'll do a video when we go. Not only will we do it when we go to the Halloween Horror Night, but then when they actually finally open the Spirit of Halloween shop, we'll take a look around and see what they have there, though. But it does sound pretty cool, though. And like Mohammed said, they have a lot of animatronics, which is the whole point of this video.
And if you guys want to see us going there, please like this video down so we can go. Okay, so we can't make an animatronics video without talking about Five Nights at Freddy's.
Oh yeah?
Which is because that is the most popular franchise in my generation so far.
Okay, so this generation though.
Wait, you've actually never played Five Nights at Freddy's, right?
I don't want to destroy my memories of childhood with hugging Chuck on the stage. And then now I'm going to get attacked by like.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But let's talk about why it freaked people out, right?
Okay.
To keep it short, it's this game where like you are playing the role of a night shift security guard, right?
Okay.
And
I've always wanted to be one.
Well, you can be one in the game.
Okay.
So you have to stay in a room for like 5-6 hours. You have to basically survive the night, right?
Okay.
And all you have is a flashlight. You have to keep an eye on the doors. You have 2 doors on your. You have a door on your left side and you have a door on your right side.
Okay.
And then you have a tablet which you can open periodically to keep an eye on the security cameras. Now, you don't really know this for the first night, but then as the nights get more and more difficult, the animatronics will get off the stage and like move around.
I don't have a flamethrower?
No. They basically will try to get into your room, which is why you have to keep an eye on the doors and the tablet. Now you may be thinking, well, what if I kept the doors closed all the time? Well, you're also limited on power. So every time you close the doors, you're using power. Every time you turn on the lights, you're using up your power. If you run out of power, you're done. But I guess the reason why this became so popular is because it blended like so many things into one, right? Now it blended animatronics, it blended that horror theme, it blended having like a really, really dark story about.
The story's kind of dark, actually.
It is very dark about like kids being murdered and stuff into suits. But people became like obsessed with them just because I guess it just worked all together.
Okay.
And it freaked people out, and it's developed such a big fan base too over the years that now we have like books about it. We have a whole video game franchise about it, and we even have a movie franchise now too with 2 mainstream movies on it.
Wait, so there's no flamethrower, there's no EM pulse. You just close and open doors, and you have to worry about how much electricity you have while you have like animatronics coming to life that are possessed with like the essence of children. It's kind of it's overall freaky, but I mean, why doesn't the security guard just quit?
Well, if you follow the storyline, the security guard is working there because he's actually trying to take down his father.
Okay.
I don't want to release too much about the story, but basically, like, the reason why you're working there as a security guard is that there's a whole bigger reason to it.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. But it's like in a different way than like what like a regular horror game would be, because again, with animatronics, like, you go back into the idea of Uncanny Valley. Your brain messes with, is it real or is it fake? That's why like I guess the animatronics in a horror video game works so well.
In conclusion, right, and we're going to test this when we go to the Halloween Horror Nights. We're going to test it out, though. But my conclusion is that there is a big group of people that absolutely love being scared, shitless by animatronics. And the idea of the Uncanny Valley, where you have things that are human-like but a little bit off, and your brain kind of goes and then gets really afraid. I mean, that makes sense. But the reality is that people will experience it in a different way, though. So we're going to test that, though. Again, it's kind of a great opportunity to go down and check it out, because even myself personally, my idea of animatronics It's based off of Chuck E. Cheese, of course. Like horror movies or space horror movies like Aliens, which was quite frightening. But everyone does experience it differently. But I think that there's a fundamental freakiness about things that look humanoid that seem a little off. So, even with the new AI robots that you mentioned, some of them are a little bit like they look very human. Right? They look like humans, but just the eye movements are a little bit different, even how they smile, and there's something really, really creepy about that.
Yeah. So to close things off, we want to ask you all an important question. What scares you guys more? Is it an animatronic that looks almost human? Is it one that suddenly lunges at you? Or is it one that just stays completely still and just stares at you?
That's completely still, just stares at you and then just like blinks once. Might be kind of freaky if you have the lights done properly though. But no, it's really interesting to see. And I'm so looking forward to Halloween this year because, it's kind of going backwards. You would think, right? Like with all the AI and everything that they use in movies though. I mean, some of the most exciting, luckily growing up during that time, right, with Star Wars, Jedi, with just those huge like puppets as well, right? Puppets always freak me out though. Puppets really do, but just that level, with CGI now, you can do a lot of things that look very, very realistic, but
it loses that spark though.
It seems as though it loses that spark. I'm not trying to, because I do like AI generated things. I think it's fascinating, but just knowing that it's real kind of adds that kind of uncanny, creepy feeling to it.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay, anyway, please drop a comment down below letting us know what type of animatronic actually scares you the most. Also, if there are any topics that you guys want us to cover in the future, please let us know down below.
Again, thank you very much. Once again, my name is Tano Alexander, and this is...
And my name is Mohammed. Thank you guys so much for watching SPEC Frequency. If you're new here, please make sure you like this video and subscribe. And again, if there are any topics you want us to cover in the future, please drop a comment down below.
And remember, always this.
Protect yourself at all times.
Yeah.